All right, guys, let's get into this discussion today. I want to talk with you about what it means to be a compelling man. I actually looked this up. I think most of us inherently maybe probably already know what it means to be compelling, but I looked it up because I wanted to see if there was something that I had left out or hadn't considered. And here's what the definition of compelling is. It says evoking interest, attention, or admiration in a powerfully irresistible way. If that doesn't describe what I think most men probably want, at least to some degree, I don't know what does. Now, this is not about getting attention. This is not about necessarily even lifting up our ego. This is about garnering the attention, the admiration, the respect that you need in order to accomplish your objectives in life. We don't live in a vacuum. We don't live in a world where you're isolated. The lone wolf idea for men is flawed at best, destructive at worst, and it's been perpetuated by the media and by entertainment industries that men are supposed to go at it alone. Well, the reality is any success that you've had and that I've had in my life has come because I've partnered up with somebody. Somebody has given me a chance or partnered up with me or given me an opportunity or made it an introduction or decided to follow and band with me and tackle a cause or a task or a project together. And if you want people to follow you, whether you're a father, a husband, a leader in your business, a coach, some sort of a mentor, if you want people to follow you, then you need to evoke, like this says in the definition, interest, attention, and admiration. So what I'm going to do with you today is share 12 strategies, tips that you can utilize in your life to evoke more interest, attention, and admiration. Essentially become a more compelling individual. And again, when you do, you're going to have more success in your life. And ultimately, if you weren't listening to this podcast or watching it on YouTube, then you probably isn't something you're interested in. But because you're here, I imagine you are interested in being a more compelling, more effective, more capable man. And in order to do that, the way that you present yourself to the public, to those who you're trying to lead, is important. And what I'm going to share with you today, when I go through this, it might be tempting to say that these are surface level things, that these are things that don't really show any depth to who you are as an individual. And so I want to say first and foremost that there does have to be depth. There does have to be substance to who you are as a man. Because without the substance, without the depth, without the morality and the intelligence and the things that I've talked at length about, these 12 things that I'm going to go through with you today are going to be at best the whole concept of faking it till you make it, which people can spot very easily. I mean, think about in your life who is full of garbage. That's the type of individual you will be if you don't have the substance and the depth to go behind or deeper than the surface level way that you present yourself, which is important and something I'm going to go through today. Now, a lot of people will say, and I think I talked about this on last week's Friday Field Notes, is they'll say things like, real men don't care about how they look and real men don't posture, et cetera, et cetera. Well, that's not true at all. I mean, throughout all of history and all of cultures, men have been very, very aware of how they are being perceived. That's not the only consideration to what it means to be a man, certainly, and I alluded to that earlier, but the way that you are perceived by individuals is important. So the things that you wear, the way that you look, the way that you portray yourself, the way that you communicate with individuals is going to be very, very important. And in a lot of ways, it's the first thing that people see when they look at you. So if you go in for a job interview and you look like a slob because quote unquote real men don't care about how they look, well, you're not going to get the job. You're not going to get the promotion. If you're trying to approach an attractive woman and you haven't showered for 5 days, well, odds are that she's not going to be interested in you, and she's not even going to give you the time of day to figure out how much depth there is to you. So use your presence, use the way you look, use the way you exude confidence, use the way that you present yourself in public to your advantage. Why would you hinder yourself when you can use the tips that I'm going to share with you today and other tips that I've shared in the past to help you achieve more, to do more, to be more, and to have more accomplishment in your life? So there's a little introduction for you. I don't want to waste a bunch of time getting into all of the ramifications, I think it's safe to say that we know that we want to be successful, and we need to be able to exhibit that success right away, immediately to people. So let's get into this. And again, these are very simple things. These are things that you can do and implement. You can implement each of these steps like in the next 5 minutes. And if you start implementing these things and you write them down, you document them, you strive to implement them, you review and make sure you're continuing to implement them. If you do this, you're going to notice improvement very, very quickly with your relationship with other individuals. So let's get into it. Number one, making eye contact. That's so simple. It's just not a difficult thing to do. It's funny because I'll be walking down the road or going into a convenience store or the grocery store, just out in public. And it is amazing to me how many people either cannot or refuse to make eye contact. It almost seems like it's harder to try to avoid making eye contact with another individual. Why wouldn't you just use a very simple look into a person's eyes? Now, only confident people can do this. So what that means is that if somebody's not looking you in the eye, what's being perceived, what you are portraying is that A, you're not confident, B, you may be up to something because you're trying to be shifty or hide out. But when you make eye contact with another individual, immediately that sends off a signal that this is somebody who is at least confident enough to stand up straight and look another human being in the eye. This is not a difficult thing to do. This is a very simple practice, and you would be very, very, I don't know if you'd be surprised. Maybe some people would be surprised how quickly you will build some rapport with other individuals when you simply look them in the eye. Now, I'm not talking about staring them down. I'm not talking about mad dogging people. I'm just talking about using a little discernment for the way that you look at people and looking into their eyes. Everything, what is it? The eyes are a window to the soul. So people can tell who you are and what you're about, at least to some degree, by looking into your eyes. So do that. Number two, shake hands firmly. Shake somebody's hand firmly. When you don't shake people's hands firmly, you're perceived as weak. You're perceived as potentially cowardly. It's not a good look. It's not a good feel, I should say. Never, ever give somebody a limp, cold fish handshake because it's weird. Even women, don't ever shake a woman's hand weakly as well. Shake it with confidence. Shake it with some firmness. Let them know that you're here, that you're present. I'm not saying you need to crush their hand. And look, I've shaken people's hands who they think it's a contest. Okay, it's not a contest. That's not what I'm talking about. But I am saying exhibit some level of assertiveness. Look into somebody's eye, shake their hand firmly, grasp their hand solidly, and let them know what you're about. Let them know who you are through a simple gesture, a 2-second gesture of extending your hand, gripping firmly, shaking with authority, and then letting go. That will speak volumes about who you are and how you show up and how assertive you are. And again, I go back to the job interview, for example. I think you'd be surprised how often that will paint everything else in the correct light. It actually sets up the remainder of the interview. And that interview could be a job interview. It could be a potential woman that you want to date. It could be any number of things. Anytime you meet an individual, they are interviewing you. They are sizing you up. And the first two things that you can do is look them in the eye and shake their hand firmly. If you nail those two things, that sets the tone for the rest of the conversation and the rest of the meeting. Now, it could go south based on what you do from there, but you want to set yourself up in the right light immediately. And you do that by looking in their eyes and by shaking their hand firmly. Number three, speak clearly. Don't mumble. Don't be quiet. Speak very clearly. Articulate your words well. Now, this isn't something that I've been able to do forever. I mean, this is something I've really had to work on. Somebody sent me a message, I think it was just this morning, and they are considering starting a podcast themselves. And they said, how did you develop the skills to be a good interviewer? And part of being a good interviewer is being able to speak clearly, articulate your questions well, follow up, listen, et cetera, et cetera. And for me, it's just a matter of practice. It's just a matter of being deliberate about it, being intentional about it, having it on my mind. And that's why I have these strategies, is because these are things that I'm working on myself. So number three, when you're learning to speak clearly, People are going to naturally listen to you. If you're mumbly or you're quiet, inevitably people are going to tune you out. They're going to, again, perceive you as weak, not knowing your information, maybe stupid to a degree, or at least ignorant about the subject. And if you open your mouth and you can't speak clearly about a subject, maybe you just don't know enough about it to actually share. So if you're rambling and mumbling and incoherent with your thoughts, I can't tell you how many people on YouTube and Facebook and Instagram who write comments and it's like incoherent ramblings. I have no idea what these people are trying to say. And this is somebody who undermines their authority and their credibility because they can't articulate a message clearly. There's also, it seems to me, a trend that the bigger words that you use, then maybe you're perceived as being more intelligent. And that's not true. If nobody understands what you're saying because you're using sophisticated words, you may not be doing yourself any favors. You may feel better, and that's an ego thing, right? Because you're using this vocabulary that you feel like is powerful, and yet it's not powerful if nobody knows what it is you're talking about. For example, I was at a church meeting. This was years ago, and everybody in the congregation, probably 99.9% of the congregation, spoke English. That's it. They didn't know another language. And somebody got up, and to open the meeting, they prayed, which is typical and standard, but they prayed in Spanish, which I guess is fine, except that nobody knows what that person is saying. Well, that's a problem. And I'm not saying that speaking Spanish is not speaking clearly. I'm saying know who you're speaking to, speak in a way that's going to land and build up your credibility because they understand what you're saying, not undermine it because nobody knows what it is you're talking about. So maybe that's not the best example, but it illustrates the point that if people don't know what you're saying, you're not setting the meeting up in the right way. So be clear, know your audience, be succinct in your words, know what you want to talk about. That's why I have bullet points here in my field notes, because I want to stay on track when I'm talking with you. And the more clearly that you can articulate your message in a relevant way based on what your audience wants to hear, the more successful you're going to be with them. And of course, the more compelling that you're going to be. Number 4, walk briskly. Inevitably, I've had people ask me over the past 5 years, what's the best piece of advice you have? And what's the best piece of advice you ever learned from a mentor or from your father or whoever? And one of the lessons that always stands out to me is my stepfather said to me, wherever you're going, do it quickly. Wherever you're going, do it quickly. And I remember that 20, 25, almost 30 years later, because it's valuable. Successful people don't walk slowly. They kind of mope around and they drag their feet and they let their shoes or their sandals scrape across the floor because they have nowhere to be. And so when you see that individual, you perceive that, people perceive that as laziness, as a lack of discipline, or an unmotivated individual. Now, whether that's true or not is a completely different story. We're talking about being compelling, which means that people are interpreting the signals that you're putting out into the world as meaning, right? Everything you do has meaning. So if you're dragging your feet, people are going to attach meaning to that. If you want to be compelling to individuals, then you need to learn to walk a little quicker, pick up the pace, actually have somewhere to be. Have some speed and excitement and a little hop in your step, if you will. When you do that, people will inevitably see that and interpret that as this is somebody who's getting things done. And when you see an individual who you interpret as being capable of getting things done, don't you want to know what that guy's up to? Don't you want to follow that individual? Don't you want to, in a way, potentially be like that individual? Of course you do. So stop dragging your feet. Stop moping around. Now, of course, there's times where you're going to go a little faster, a little slower. This is going to be situation dependent, of course. But generally, put a little hop in your step and get to where you need to be quickly. If you don't have anywhere you need to be, well, okay, then maybe that's a time where you can rest and take it easy. But man, if you're going, go. Do it quickly. Number 5, this is all about posture, all right? So number 5 is keep your shoulders back Keep your head up and keep your chest out. Now, you don't want to overdo this, right? Because I've had people that I know in my life who will walk around with their chest as far out as they can and their head up, their neck up in the air. I mean, it taken to the extreme, it looks foolish. It looks ridiculous. It looks like posturing. There's no weight or significance or meaning behind it. That said, if you're hunched over and your shoulders are down and you're slouched like this and you're moping around, I mean, what kind of signal are you putting out into the world? Of course, you're putting out a signal that what you're doing doesn't matter, that you're irrelevant, that you're just kind of a little leaf or whatever in the wind, just blowing around wherever society and the world and whatnot takes you. Exude yourself. Put yourself into the environment. Assert yourself into the environment. Assert yourself in a room. Command attention and respect. Part of the way you do that is by keeping your shoulders back, your chest out, and your head up. Now, all of these other strategies as well, but that simple act alone is going to change. And there's been studies that say and show that the way that you carry yourself physically, the way that you posture, will actually affect performance. So if you're slouching and you're hunched and you're doing this, which is hard for me because I'm quite literally over a computer all day, well, I mean, that's going to affect my posture. So if that's what you're doing, stop doing that. Learn to stand up, learn to keep the shoulders back, chest out, head up, and that is going to affect your performance positively. And other people are going to see that and, of course, be affected and impacted in a positive way by that and think highly of you because of it. What are we on? Let's see, that was 5. So now we're on number 6. I'm going to make a note here. Usually I just do bullet points. I should just do numbers so I don't lose track. But number 6 is be interested. Be interested in other individuals. If you're not interested, they're never going to be interested in you. If you are faking this and pretending like you're interested, then really what you're doing is pandering and it becomes annoying and everybody can see right through it. But curiosity is a very, very powerful virtue. It's something that I've really had to work on specifically with regards to the podcast and interviewing. And I found that the more curious I am, genuinely curious about individuals, the more likely it is I'm going to develop a relationship of trust and credibility with other people because I want them to win. I want those individuals to succeed. I want to know what makes them tick. And who do you want to talk about? You want to talk about yourself. So if I give you the opportunity to talk about yourself and I do it in a credible, respectful way, aren't you going to feel good about that conversation? If you and I have a conversation and you get to share your stories and your background and why you believe the way you believe and what makes you tick and how you've had successes and overcome failures, and I'm facilitating you talking about yourself, aren't you going to feel good about me? Aren't you going to want to be around me because I make you feel good about yourself? Of course you are. And this is true for dating. This is true for, again, a job interview. This is true for dealing with clients, for dealing with maybe teammates that you have, or you're coaching a youth team. If you can be interested in those kids or that woman or your clients or whoever it may be, the odds of you getting things done with that person are significantly higher because they believe that you care. Now, here's the catch. You actually have to care. If you fake it, if you fake interest, everybody will see right through it and you'll undermine your ability to be compelling. In fact, you'll be off-putting. People will reject that because they know you're full of crap. So genuinely be interested, listen to people, don't worry so much about yourself, and you'll have a better time. All right, number 7, along the same lines, but we need to reverse this, flip this a little bit. Be interested. Be interesting. I just said interested. Be interesting. All right, if you're boring and you don't have anything to say, you don't have anything to share, you don't have any stories that are fascinating or unique, nobody cares. Nobody cares at all. So be interesting. Go out into the world. And this is actually part of the substance thing I was talking about earlier. There has to be some weight, some depth to you. If all you do is go to work and then you go home and you eat the same food and you have sex the same way and you read the same books and you go to bed at the same time and then you do the same workout, like there's nothing compelling about that. So be interesting. Go on unique vacations. Have unique interests and hobbies and activities. Have stories to share and tell. Tell it in a unique way. Learn how to use this tool of your voice to command this attention through your volume and speed and tone and inflection. Be an interesting human being. If you're boring and monotonous and you don't have anything to share and life is okay, if you're the Eeyore of communication, nobody cares. In fact, they're going to do whatever they can to get themselves out of a conversation with you because it's absolutely boring and miserable. So have some weight, have some depth, have some experiences to share, have some funny stories to tell, have some crazy adventures that you've lived, because then you're a more interesting human being and people inevitably want to be around more interesting people. Number 8, and this is where I lose a lot of guys. So bear with me on this, okay? If you disagree with me on this, let me allow myself to explain my position before you say, oh, well, everything you said is crap because he said this one. All right, here it is. Ready? Dress well. Dress well. Most of you are probably thinking, well, yeah, that makes sense. But there's a large percentage of you who think real men, again, don't care about what they look like. That's not true. Even the guys that say they don't care about what they look like care about what they look like, because what they're doing in a lot of cases is they're making their style decisions based on portraying that they don't care, which means they actually do care, if that makes sense. So dress well. It's okay, guys, that you dress well. And look, I'm not telling you that you need to wear a suit, because if you're wearing a suit out and you're going to camping, for example, you're undermining your credibility and authority. If you show up to a suit and we're going hunting, well, I'm going to laugh you out of there because you're not in the right attire, right? But if you come ready with the right clothing based on the situation, maybe it is a suit because you're going to some sort of an event. Maybe it's casual wear because you're hanging out with the guys. Maybe it's hunting clothes because that's what you're doing. You're going out hunting. But dress well. Again, I'm not telling you wear a suit. I'm telling you to base your clothing on the occasion and then dress accordingly. If you're stained and shirts aren't fitting you correctly, and the clothes don't look good and they're cheap quality, that's going to say something about you. Every part of you is saying something about you. And even you guys right now are judging me. You're judging my shirt. You're judging my hat. Of course, you're judging my beard. You either love it or hate it, but you're judging me. Okay, doesn't that tell you that other individuals are judging too? They're looking at who you are and how you're projecting yourself, what you're wearing, as a piece of the puzzle to determine if they want to listen to you. Now, there's some guys who will listen to this, and I know this because they make comments here on YouTube, is they'll look at my beard and they'll say, well, I'm not going to listen to anything else this guy is saying because of the beard. And look, that's fine. You have the right to do that. I don't necessarily agree with that, but that's your prerogative. And what it tells me is that the way that we present ourselves actually matters, and people are looking into it. Be keenly aware of it and then use it to your advantage. That's all it is. It's a tool that you can use to your advantage to accomplish more, to achieve more, to, like the definition of compelling says, evoke interest, attention, admiration in a powerfully irresistible way. Number 9, lose weight. Lose weight. Now, of course, there's the health benefits of losing weight, and there's the reasons why you should, just purely from the perspective that you'll feel better, that you'll have more energy, that you'll be more capable, and ultimately you'll be better at being a man. You'll be a more capable man if you lose weight. If you don't lose weight, there's all the negative health ramifications that come with that, but also people, again, they're going to perceive that. They're going to see somebody who's 30, 40, 50, 60, 100 pounds overweight, and what does that say to an individual? Now, whether it's true or not is not what I'm saying. All I'm saying is that people are going to perceive it away, and how are they going to perceive it? That person is lazy. That person is a slob. That person has no discipline. And before you say it, because I know what you're already thinking, well, Ryan, that's not fair. Fair has nothing to do with it. You can't determine what other people are going to think based on fairness. Everybody is judging. I have people that are listening to this right now who believe in the idea that we shouldn't be judgmental, and yet they're judging everything I'm saying, everything I'm doing, everything I'm wearing, and everything else about another individual because they refuse to see that they are judging as well. Now, some people might use a different word like discernment or something like that, but ultimately, you're taking in all of these clues from other people and you're determining, is this an ally? Is this an enemy? Is this somebody who's credible? Is this somebody I can listen to? Is this somebody I can partner with? Is this somebody who's dangerous? Is this somebody who is a threat that I ought to reject? You're looking at that and you're taking all these cues and signals in. And so when you see somebody who's engaged with you, who's 50, 60, 70, 100 pounds overweight, you're naturally thinking to yourself, hey, this might be a nice individual. This might be a nice guy, but I don't know how disciplined he is. I don't know how capable he is. I don't know how focused he is. And they're making all of these assumptions, whether they're true or not. And because we know that's the case, why are we going to play ignorant and say, well, my looks don't really matter. They shouldn't matter. Well, shoulda, coulda, woulda. It doesn't matter what they should look like or how people should perceive you. It's a matter of how they do perceive you. So besides the benefits, the health benefits of losing weight, it's a pretty good idea to lose weight if you want to be a more compelling person, more compelling man, and somebody that people want to be engaged with, listen to, and have partnerships in some capacity with you. In addition to that, and this is, let's see, that's 9. So 9 was lose weight. Is that right? Yep, 9. So 10 is gain muscle. Gain muscle. I mean, it kind of goes hand in hand. Maybe these points should have been together. Maybe I should just say be healthy. Be a healthy individual. When you're a healthy individual, people are going to look at you different. When you're strong and people can see muscles on you, men or women can see muscles on you, they're going to think, okay, this is a guy who's strong. This is a guy who's healthy. This is somebody who's capable. This is somebody who's disciplined. This is somebody who I see could help me move in the direction that I want to move. And if that's you, then you're going to move in that right direction. Now, I'm not saying I'm the pinnacle of model health. I'm not saying I'm as strong as I could be or lean as I could be or will, but I'm on that path. And that's what I'm asking you, or at least suggesting to you, is get on the path. Build some strength, build some muscle. Besides the benefits, again, we know there's health benefits to it. Besides the benefits, the muscles you have, the amount of body fat that you have, those things are telling a story, or at least they're a puzzle to the story that's being told about who you are before you even open your mouth and before anybody knows anything about you. You want to be a more compelling individual, get your health in order, and you inevitably will be more respected and more credible. Number 11, and I've got 2 more here, guys. So bear with me. And you might have more too. If you do have more, drop them in the comments on YouTube. If you're just listening to this, then head to YouTube, youtube.com/orderofman. You can also connect with me on Instagram at Ryan Michler. And my last name is spelled Michler. So it's at Ryan Michler. And let me know. Maybe there's some other things that you think would help people be more compelling. But number 11, telling stories. The more stories that you can tell, the better off you're going to be, the more connected that people are going to be around you. This is one that I struggle with because I tend to be pretty black and white. So the data and the numbers and the yeses or the nos, like that resonates with me well. And that's how I tend to communicate, which is why I have a checklist here and I'm just going through the checklist. But the more that you tell stories, the better off you're going to be. And this is something I've really had to work on, specifically with regards to my presentations. When I presented, I used to have these perfect slideshows and PowerPoints, and I'd have all the little bullet points, and I just realized that people were getting lost and they were bored. So what I started to do is, rather than getting the PowerPoint done, I started to tell or give a presentation in a chronological order by weaving one of my own personal stories into the presentation itself. And as I weaved that story, whether it was the separation with my wife or near bankruptcies and performance issues at work, I mean, whatever those stories were, I noticed that people would lean up. They'd sit up and they'd look at me and they'd give me their time and their attention and their energy, and they were more engaged and more excited. Storytelling is one of the oldest forms of communication that we have ever known. We used to sit around campfires and tell stories. Why? To teach lessons. To teach lessons to our children and our friends about what works and what doesn't in society, and things that are acceptable and things that aren't, and how to keep ourselves safe and stay out of danger, all through the medium of telling stories. So this comes back to, and I think it was point 7, where I said, be interesting. The more interesting you are, the more experiences you have, the better stories you can tell. And we all know the guy who's a great storyteller that everybody wants to sit and listen to and communicate with because they're fun, they're engaging, they're interesting, they're unique. And we learn a lot from those individuals as well. We all know the adage, facts tell, stories sell. Facts tell, stories sell. So get better at telling stories. By what? Telling stories. Practice it. All right, guys, last point. That was 11. Here we are on number 12. Just smile. All right, when you see somebody down the road or you're holding a door for somebody or you walk into a room, just smile. There's this convenience store that I go into every other morning or so, and the lady, she just looks miserable. She just looks like a miserable human being. I walk in there, she doesn't smile, she doesn't communicate clearly, she doesn't speak clearly, I should say. She doesn't hardly make any eye contact. She's very quiet, and she just looks like a miserable human being. I can't help but wonder what's going on in her life when I see her because of how she's portraying herself. Well, the other day I walk in there, and it must have been the guy in front of me must have been either her son or a family member or somebody that she was intimately familiar with. And he walked in there, and she just beamed with pride, and she smiled, and I noticed everything about her demeanor completely changed because this individual was there. And I thought, wow, I've never seen this side of this woman. And she was so much more pleasant. She was so much more engaging. I was so much more interested because I actually saw her smile for the first time. I've never seen her smile before. And because I saw her smile, it changed everything about the way that I perceived her. Now, some of you might be saying again, well, that's not fair, Ryan. You shouldn't judge. You shouldn't perceive. Again, this isn't about fairness. It's about making yourself a more compelling person, which means we use all the tools at our disposal, whether they're fair or not. I'm not telling you to be immoral or unethical. I'm just saying we use all of the tools at our disposal based on human psychology and based on the way people behave. We know this to be true. We know that people will judge us. We know that people perceive us in a certain way. We know that there's certain activities that people approve of, whether they do it quietly or vocally. We know there's certain activities that other people approve of, whether they do it quietly or vocally. But why not use all of this information, using all of this feedback in order to accomplish more in our lives, in order to get more opportunities with women, in order to get more promotions, in order to get more clients, in order to have more success generally, whatever that looks like for you. Using these 12 simple strategies that you can incorporate immediately. There isn't anything that I shared today that you couldn't go out in the next 5 minutes and interact with another human being and not use one of these things. Let's recap them. Number 1, make eye contact with individuals. Number 2, learn to shake somebody's hand firmly. Don't be the jerk who crushes or thinks it's a competition when you're shaking hands. Just give them a firm handshake, look them in the eye, communicate clearly. That's number 3. Speak clearly. Number 4, walk briskly. Have somewhere to be and get there fast. Number 5, shoulders back, head up, chest out. Number 6, be interested. Number 7, be interesting by having experiences and adventures that you're part of. Number 8, dress well. Number 9, lose weight. Number 10, goes hand in hand, gain muscle. All right, look better, look healthier. Number 11, learn to tell stories. And number 12, smile. Just smile. And you'll be surprised how far that goes. That's it, guys. That's part of course, not the exhaustive list, but part of the way that you become a more compelling man. Again, compelling means evoking interest, attention, admiration in a powerfully irresistible way. And that's what you want. You want to be irresistible to other people. You want people to be fascinated with who you are and why you do the things you do and what you're doing. And you want them to be involved with you. That's how you create movements. That's how you garner and command levels of respect. That's how you motivate and inspire individuals to do what you want them to do. That's how you lead them to a place they never could have imagined going on their own. These are simple strategies to do that. I hope it helps. Please let me know what you would add to the list. You can do that in the comments below if you're on YouTube. If you're not, you can go over to Instagram at Ryan Michler. Again, my last name is spelled Michler. And leave a comment in a post I make for this, or maybe you just want to tag me on your own post based on what you learned here. But I want to let you know that I'm encouraged by you guys each and every day. I'm inspired by you. I want to serve. I want to help. I want to help you become a more capable man. I want to give you the tools and the things that you need in order to do that. And I hope this is just one small part of that. So thanks for being on the journey and the path with me. Man, Lord knows we need more men in the fight to reclaim and restore masculinity. I saw an interesting article from, I believe it was GQ the other day, about the quote unquote new masculinity. There is no new masculinity. Masculinity does not need to be redefined. It needs to be reestablished. And that's what we're all about here. All right, guys, get going. I'll be back on Tuesday. Yes, Tuesday for our interview, Wednesday for the Ask Me Anything, and of course, next Friday for our next Friday Field Notes. Until then, go out there, take action, become the man you are meant to be.